we're gonna start. They keep their Picasso paintings with their duvet covers. This is an 02 model. The 02, 03 cars were all factory manual cars. And they used a smaller diameter shaft right here where this shifter threads onto. This is an M8 thread pitch. It's a M8 by 125, I think. And they were having issues with these snapping off. So when I first got this car, it was already snapped off, and somebody had just threaded it down lower, and then they hacked up the gates right here, and I'll show what the old one looks like, so that this part, because this was down lower, and this now had to fit inside the gates. So they hacked up the whole shifter plate. So what I ended up doing is I had a 02, 03 shifter shaft, a good used one that wasn't snapped off, so that he could reuse his original shift knob. And then I actually threaded this deeper and countersunk this to fit perfectly over this lower part of the shaft, so that when this threads on, it actually goes down lower, and this bottom part right here grips this right here to give it more leverage to hopefully prevent it from snapping off if somebody's trying to smash the gears and it's not going smoothly. Sometimes these cars are not always the smoothest, especially when they're cold. They can be a little finicky, and sometimes people will just hop in here and they'll just be hammering on the shifter and just trying to force it to go into gear. And these Italian cars don't take kindly to being forced what to do. So you just have to let it warm up, let the fluid warm up, and let it do its thing before you can really start hammering it. They want to be warm before you can really start getting into it. But all right, we'll go ahead and get this stuff out of here. So once this is out, that's all that has to be taken out of here in order to pull the engine out. Actually, that's not true. I'm going to pull this off, and then there's one more little piece that I can also pull off. This black piece right here, it'll just give me, I don't technically have to take it off, but I'm going to, because it'll just give me a little bit of an extra, it's a smaller Allen, but it'll give me a little bit of extra gap when I'm dropping the transmission down. This is the tunnel, and this isn't even bolted to the transmission. We'll show when we pull it out what it actually looks like. This is bolted to a big bracket. It has 4 mounting points underneath on the tunnel, on the chassis, on the frame of the chassis, and this is bolted to the top of that, and it's just like basically sitting on a stand. And then there's a shaft that runs right here that attaches to the transmission. And so all that needs to happen is we're going to take the front torque tube pieces out, like disconnect the front of the torque tube, and then we'll take out the engine mounts, obviously take everything apart underneath, and when we go to pull the engine out, this will have to drop down first. So we'll have to separate the torque tube from the differential in order for that to be able to drop down. Once it drops down, then we can slide it back. Just gives us more clearance. It's just a little riser. It's just a spacer that bolts to the top of the shifter housing assembly and gives the shifter plate and the bezel something to basically, so that when you're bolting it down, you're not just compressing this console panel down. It's giving it an extra barrier so that you're actually bolting it into that. So we'll just take that out, and now we have full clearance to pull the transmission from below without having to take anything else apart down here. So that's where we're going to start. Lift arms is a lot more precise than, like, the R8 is a very obvious place where you're putting them, but on these cars, especially in the back, you're lifting from, there's a frame piece that you lift from, but there's a carbon fiber panel that's riveted to it. So you can't quite see it. You can't quite see the frame piece, but you have to make sure that you're on the right place on the carbon fiber panel to lift it from. These wheels are made by Speedline, which Speedline's an Italian company they're known for making quality wheels. They have some aftermarket stuff, but they make a lot of OEM wheels, and all of the OEM wheels that they've manufactured are like really high quality. So this wheel, I always thought, as it sits, it's not my favorite wheel, but I've always thought about like redoing. If you look at how long the hub part is, like it's nowhere near the brake caliper. So if you started off with the front wheel, you could maximize this distance and you could rebuild this wheel with a much deeper lip on this side. So I've always kind of thought like you could take this and machine all of this to be flat, or like to follow this curvature, and then extend these all the way down, and then make it like, you could even do like a hidden hardware version where you had like fillers for these, and then have like a super deep lip, but you still get the phone dial design on it with the OEM center. I don't know, probably more work than it's worth, but it'd just be cool. Just leave me alone. I keep their Picasso paintings with their duvet covers. Who is this person? These panels are often cracked, which this one is. It's not destroyed yet, but it is cracked. They're just, the plastic that they use for fender liners is like not the nice pliable plastic that you would expect to see. It's whatever the opposite of that is. From memory, let's go back, and then you can pry it out. You can get your fingers behind it. There it goes. There we go. And then I'm gonna just grab a zip tie to zip tie this up, because you can take apart this is a emergency release cable, by the way. If you ever want to get into somebody's Mercy engine from the parking lot, you just reach up and grab it if you know what you're doing. I've taken them apart before. It's just not worth it. Unless you have to do something in here where you can't just let this hang. It's really just worth letting this hang up in here. Yeah, that'll work. Okay, so we can leave that there. And that exposes our left side radiator. So I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna collect all of our coolant. We're gonna reuse it, especially since it's brand new and we just put it in here. We are definitely gonna be collecting it. Some bleeders up here that are designed so this system can self-bleed. It's pretty smart. But there's a small coolant line that runs from the reservoir to this very skinny line, and then this skinny line just has some valve bolts that allow it to, so when there's air in the system, it goes up to the highest point, and this is the highest point, so the air goes into here and then makes its way out through the reservoir. It works really well. I've never had an issue trying to bleed one of these engines before, because it just works, so it's pretty smart. But we're gonna crack those open so that when I start draining, it's not gonna be creating a vacuum as the coolant is draining out. Give it to me.
It's not in the face.
There we go. It's not as much as you would expect to come out of there. And in actuality, the majority of the coolant is going to stay in the engine when you drain this, when you take all these pipes off. You're basically just draining part of the radiator, as much as will come out of the radiator on both sides, and then with all the lines that are external to the transmission, all those will get drained out. And then the majority of the coolant system is inside the block, and we're going to keep all that inside the block. So this is the part where it starts getting kind of wavy. I'm going to stick a funnel under it, because once it gets too far back, it will actually start to get sucked onto the bottom of the bumper, which we don't want, obviously. Sediment buildup from the water and things in the coolant system breaking down over time, but we can see this is not, that's not something we want in our coolant system. It's gross. No, gross. I'm gonna stop there. So if you look in here, you can see there's some milky sediment in there. That's just some of that. We cleaned this whole coolant system when we did it before, but they're just so good that you can get the engine cleaned out. And we don't want any of that inside of our coolant system. So we're gonna trash this, and along with that, which is still dripping. And we'll keep the good coolant and reuse it. See, that's if I leave the petcock in there, that's how it'll drain. It sprays everywhere, and I'm gonna try to just take it out. Why so splashy? Oh yeah, that's what I was saying. I needed the funnel, which I thought I had, and I did not. But at least it's a lot less coolant. This job is impossible to do without getting coolant somewhere. So we'll start with the top and work our way back, or work our way down rather. I'm sure they also came from China. I don't know why there's any coolant coming out of this. Should be zero. Do the bottom radiator hoses, which undoubtedly will leak much more coolant. So the way that the bottom radiator hose is designed, there's a curve that goes from the bottom of the housing upwards. And so everything that we just drained out, the lowest point of the system is right here. So when I pull this coupler off down here, everything basically from here down is going to leak out. So hopefully it doesn't leak out so much before I can put our cap on. I believe this cap should fit on there. This is the first time using this, so I'm not 100% sure that it's right. Which, if I'm wrong, obviously we'll just be making the same mess as usual, but working on trying to prevent making messes with these jobs. So we're gonna slide it out of this one first, and then we're gonna, oh, actually, this one also has another coolant pipe on it, and that one will leak, so let me grab a cap for that. This is a return line straight from the reservoir. This one will definitely leak. All right, we have a winner. And it's threaded for her protection. Oh, there's that. Well, the cap works. The process in between might require a little bit of tweaking. So we can go ahead and get the oil drained. Hopefully now that this thing will stop leaking on me. There's a lot of hopes. If I take that bracket off, I could probably just fit a funnel under there and run the funnel down to a container. So if it does burst open like that, it'll catch it in the funnel. But we'll have to wait for the next one to do, because we've already done made our mess on this one. All right, let's get the oil, and we're gonna capture our oil because we're gonna reuse it. So Let's go up. No, you had it right the first time. I could collect some. In fact, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna send it to another Blackstone analysis. It's only 100 miles on this, but no, not that many. 20 miles. Pick that. It doesn't cost anything extra to expedite it, but you have to pay for overnight shipping. As long as you pay for overnight shipping, which doesn't even go to Blackstone, they'll expedite it. Thought that was pretty crazy. So this is a Blackstone, this is an oil analysis. Blackstone does analysis of like oil breakdown. They'll like find particulates in the oil and basically just give you a overall oil health score. So when I first drained this oil and it was coming out kind of milky, I was worried there was a head gasket issue. So I sent them an oil sample and they came back and said that the oil actually looked good. And I mean, the report was pretty good considering how awful the oil looked, which that really surprised me. So I wanted to at least get a second opinion since we're doing this again, even though this only has maybe, I don't know. I mean, I probably only drove it maybe 20 or 30 miles. It wasn't a lot because I was mainly just like, I already knew there was a problem, so there wasn't any point in putting more miles on it. It's probably, the engine's probably run for a total of maybe 30, 45 minutes. Which the oil still kind of has like a green tint to it, which surprises me. So I want to get a second opinion. I mean, I'm not saying for sure there's anything wrong. It just makes me wonder if they got mine mixed up with somebody else's, because I mean, the last thing we want is to like be driving this engine around and there be, you know, coolant mixed in with the oil and thinking everything's okay, but in actuality it's not leaking. It's leaking. There's a head gasket issue or some other kind of issue. So the last thing that you'd want to do on this engine is obviously, or any engine for that matter, is have it running with any sort of contaminant in the oil, because it's going to cause more damage than needed. At this point, if it really was in there, then it's probably a head gasket issue, and we could just do the heads and the block. We wouldn't have to mess with pistons or anything like that. It'd be a lot cheaper. I would just take it over to Cam at DC Motor Works and have him do the work on it. Because I don't have time to do engine work. I could do it, but I've got, my schedule is booked for a long time and he can just kind of work it in. Wow, there's 2 drain bolts?
Yeah.
Probably.
What's the purpose?
Yeah, I think so. I think, so these are both of the low points, and there's probably 2 pickups in there, I would assume. And so since there's 2 low points, they just have it drained from both. They could have designed the pan where it only needed 1 drain still, but you know, whatever. Trying to come up with logical answers for stuff like that.
Lamborghini.
On Italian designs is, yeah, probably not going to yield the results that it might with almost anyone else. If this was a German engine, I could say, oh yeah, it's because the blah blah blah, and there's a cage inside there that keeps the 2 separated, and but it's not. We're not going to go crazy like draining these like every last little dropout, because we're going to be taking the lines off anyway, which we're going to get a lot more coolant out of, or a lot more oil out of the lines when we take them off. I'll tell you what, you just keep that. Just hang on to that. Let me know when you're done with it. Quit dripping on my head. All right, we'll go ahead and plug that up. Don't. Don't. I'm just gonna snug this for now.
Which one? Okay.
I think I can get both of these. 375 millimeters, give or take 375 millimeters. Because I'm gonna leave this overnight. That's why I'm doing it like this. Try to get as much of the oil out of here as we can. And then I have caps for this. I just don't know if they're gonna work. This one always screws me up. There we go. Yes. Yes. So this drains the cooler out. That's why there's so much more coming out of this. It's not slowing down. It's not slowing down. What do I do? What do I do? There must be so much in that reservoir, dude. Can you see how close that is? We're bordering close to the meniscus containing it. That's helpful. I don't know if I have two of those though. Thinking probably not. Although I could just keep capping this. Hey, nice. Really don't think I'm gonna find one for that back one though. Just gonna have to live with it. Yeah, we'll spend a lot of time up here, but it hurts my back to do any other way at the moment, so I need to redo this intake tube too. I bought the right fitting. So this is what I suspect water was coming in this intake tube, because it sits right behind this duct right there, and this was just sitting like in it, and then this was aiming straight down, and so that goes into straight down into the just gonna disconnect this into the oil reservoir, and so I kind of suspected that that's where the water was coming into this thing. But the oil analysis that I did had like no adverse indications. Everything, they said everything looked healthy, and so I suspected that possibly it got mixed up, that my oil analysis got mixed up. And even just now when I drained it, it didn't look great. That's why I shipped out another sample. I just want to make sure that it is right. I mean, I don't want to send this back to him and him drive it for, you know, a few thousand miles and then end up having a serious problem with it. I mean, that's kind of the whole point of doing work on it, is to make it a drivable car. You know, he wants to put miles on it, and that's what they're made for, so just got to get it in the right shape for that. I'm going to take all this stuff apart first, and then I'll start back there and work my way toward the rear. One of the things that I was looking at is that the cam solenoids, which are these, they're like the wires go into these connectors right here. Well, so these are marked, okay? So you've got, these are numbered. So you got 2, 4, 1, and 3. And they correspond to 1, 3, 4, and 2, naturally. Well, so on these, you've got, they're labeled A and S. A is for aspira, or whatever, which is intake. S is for Scirocco, which is exhaust. Well, they were flipped. If you looked at them, the A was going to the exhaust solenoid, and the S was going to the intake. Well, I went back and looked at the pictures on the listing, and also they're marked, so they're color coded. So somebody went in here with a paint pen and marked all this stuff. This one's blue and this one's pink. And if you take these ones off, this one's blue and this one's blue. So they had one side correct, but then the other side was completely wrong. And I went back and looked at the photos from the Cars and Bids listing, and they were backwards then too. And like, nobody mentioned anything about the fact that it didn't idle. The car would not idle. The idle was just constantly hunting between 1,000 and 2,000 RPMs. You don't see that in the listing. They had video. They had Doug driving the car like, oh, these cars are great, you know, talking about it. Like, nobody thought to mention the little important detail that the car wouldn't freaking hold an idle. It's just shady. I don't understand doing stuff like that in the name of making money. Just be honest about it. Like, somebody can deal with it in the future, but don't make it be some unsuspecting person that bought the car unwittingly, having to spend tens of thousands of dollars. He's going to be 30 grand in this when he's done. And he overpaid for the car to begin with, and he got screwed on that deal with the title because somebody decided to lie about the mileage, and then New Jersey issued him a rebuilt title on it, or a branded title on it. Just don't lie about it. It's not that hard. I don't get it. It's so hard to find honest people nowadays in any line of work. I mean, this customer has sent this car to multiple different shops. Every single shop he sends it to just feeds him a line. It's like they're all just trying to get the most money for the least amount of work. Do the work. Quit worrying about the rest. Just do the work. I feel like we live in a world where people aren't really interested in their reputations anymore. They figure if they can find one or two people to beat the drum for them, that's all they need. And a lot of the people in this industry, that's all they're doing. They're just banking on the fact that somebody out there is going to beat the drum for them, and it's going to drown out the noise from all the customers that they've defrauded and screwed over. And we live in a world where all information is right there at your fingertips. And yet people won't take the time to actually do the research. They just want to spend the least amount of money possible, and they don't care at what cost that comes. And they should. It should matter that you're a shop that's competing with a shop that's decent, and because you're charging less money, even though you're defrauding people, you're putting good businesses out of business because they can't compete. Makes no sense. And we wonder why we're in the middle of an age where stuff like this is getting harder and harder to find. Getting quality people to do quality work is harder and harder to find, to come by nowadays. There should be no curiosity left there. It should be entirely understood at this point. Flood cars are among the most reasonable deals you can get because everyone's so afraid that it's got this problem or that problem or whatever. And in all reality, it probably doesn't have many issues at all. I mean, electronics wise, you could go through and replace every control module if you want to, but you can usually figure out which control modules actually need to be replaced. So we'll start with the alternator, because the alternator is the one that actually has a pulley attached to it. Or, I shouldn't say that. They all have pulleys on them. But the alternator is what is tensioned. And there is a tensioner, but you don't have to fight the tensioner so much if you use the alternator's install. Most cars have one or the other. They either have a tensioner or they have a driven tension from the alternator that you tighten a bolt and it pushes the alternator out and it tightens the belt as it goes. Most cars don't have both. This car does, and so you can almost ignore the spring tensioner. I say almost. You can't quite ignore the spring tensioner, but it's not as complicated as like the LP 640 engine where you have to use the tensioner to release the tension on the belt. But we'll detail that in a second. It's on this bolt. We're going to take it completely out. There's 2 bolts like this that are identical on here. Eventually it'll come out. My mom and I had issues. When I took it off, there were only 2 bolts in it, so previous tech cheated. It made no stinking sense, man. It makes no stinking sense. They tried to tell me the thing, and I said, no, it don't make no stinking sense. We can take the belt off. I'm gonna leave the belt on the engine, but take the belt off, and now we have access to, let's see here. I don't know if these will be too tight or not. And there's 3 bolts, 3 Allen bolts on here that can be accessed, but you gotta rotate the pulley to get access to them. But I've had them off before, so they shouldn't be super tight. But if you try to break them loose with this, a lot of times you'll just break the tip of this, because these are not the most robust tools in the world. We took 2 off earlier, now we're taking off the last 3, which are all accessible inside the holes of the pulley. Just lift the power steering pump out. We'll just stick it back here for now. All right, now all we have left is the AC compressor, which technically this whole thing can just be lifted up and out of the way, but it'll give us more. I think I did leave this on before. Yeah, I did, because I definitely didn't take these off. Yeah, we'll just leave it on. We'll leave the whole thing attached like this, and then we'll just drop it below this exhaust piece when we go to do that. Actually, we could just do it right now. Get it out the way. Typically, I would recommend hitting these with some sort of penetrating lube, PB Blaster, even WD-40. Anything's better than nothing, but I'm not going to, because I'm better than you. Also because I just had them off, so I know they're loose. These are very prone to breaking, snapping off, and they're expensive, so try not to. Okay, while it's not my favorite part of the job, removing those effectively allows you to not have to evacuate all of the Freon from your AC system. Oftentimes the fittings on the AC lines will break when you're trying to remove them from the compressor, which adds to the cost. It's significantly more expensive. You end up needing a new compressor and often new lines. And then same with the power steering system. You don't have to evacuate the power steering system and re-bleed it when you reattach it. You don't have to make the extra mess by moving it, disconnecting it, and you're just moving it out of the way. So now you have access to be able to remove all this stuff a lot more cleanly. So we're gonna keep plugging on and start removing the rearward. We've got vacuum lines, a couple of electrical connections, and the fuel lines, and 2 coolant lines. So we'll get those removed next, and then that will basically take care of everything up top that has to be disconnected. I'm gonna pull a muscle, I can feel it. Vacuum line. This harness is essentially for the ignition system. It'll stay on the engine, and we're gonna replace it with the engine, or when we pull the engine out. But for now it stays. Okay, we've got 1 vacuum line here. There's still a bit of coolant in there. Now, last but not least, there's a section of grounds. It should be 10mm nuts holding them in place. A lot of times I see that they've already been removed. It's a good idea when you're reinstalling these to clean off all the contacts too. At least on this car they're pretty bad. Not all cars are bad, but in fact on this car, because of the, what on earth? Quit being dumb. because of the design of the stud that these are attached to, it actually wouldn't go down all the way. So the ground attachments were just swiveling, even when the nut was tightened. So you can put a washer on there if you want to space it out. Some of these get 2 contacts per stud, and so you wouldn't need a washer on that one. Okay, so you can look down the side of this and see that there is nothing attached between the chassis and the engine, which is how it should look when you're ready to pull the engine out. Now we got to do the same for the other side. All right, so now the only thing left we have on this side is this main heater hose, which this is a problematic hose on these cars. It's always recommended to replace these. And then this feed line right here, which we can go ahead and take that out. You can do this either way. You can either remove it from here and leave it on the engine like I'm doing, or you can remove it from right here and leave it attached to the reservoir. Some of these cars, it's running down through the middle. Someone redid it on this car to run to the side, and I'm gonna leave it that way, even though from the factory it would have gone down the middle, but I kind of like it better running along the side. It'll last longer because it won't see the same temps. Okay, last but not least, we've got this heater hose, which we are going to try not to create a massive mess, which we all know is not gonna work. Here goes nothing. Well, that part worked, but we lost our plug on this guy. All right, so now we're clear all the way along the side. Only a little bit of pee. Will Ferrell's hit or miss for me. Like, sometimes I find his stuff funny, and sometimes he's like is trying too hard or something, you know? Yeah, he's gotten a little bit too woke for me, I think. I saw a thing with Bryan Cranston and someone else, and they were talking about like privilege, and I'm like, bro. Oh, that's right. That was a good movie too. That's, believe it or not, that's the first time I ever saw Kevin Hart in anything. I had never heard of King of Queens or anything like that.
Oh, Kevin James?
Yeah, Kevin James. Yeah. Kevin Hart, not so much. I think that people like Justin Bieber, who like try to come out and speak out about it, like, and then they basically just like disappear and go into hiding. I think that's why. Which it's not. In all reality, there's an hour worth of stuff already removed off of this car. Like everything that goes on top, all the covers and stuff. All right, are we good on the drippage? Because you said that last night and then you kept dripping on me and I wasn't super happy about it. Oh, was it the guy, that played Punisher? Yeah, Ford versus Ferrari guy. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. So funny thing about these, if you don't put a lug bolt, like, so right now I currently have the e-brake on, but because there's no lug bolt in here, there's nothing locking the rotor to the hub. So it's just spinning. Yeah, okay, yeah. Okay, I think this will work now. I'll do the same on the other side. Well, and that's why so many people rave about the Countach being such a great car. Dude, it is a piece of crap. It's always been a piece of crap. And then people decided, hey, it's a beautiful car, we'll still pay for it. And then all of a sudden everyone wants to be like, oh, the Countach's the greatest car ever because it's expensive. Dude, it's expensive because somebody started propping the market up and people started paying what they were. But you used to be able to get a Countach for like under 100,000. I don't think most of them look good. I mean, it's okay for an 80s car, but I'd take a Testarossa over that any day. That's also irrelevant. It could look good, but it's a piece of crap. They drive terribly. They're built terribly. I wonder if I can just leave these axles leak when you take the stubs off. Now, I'm gonna save the engine mounts for last, but there's a bunch of stuff up front that we need to take off, so. So now we just have the mount bolts and our clutch line, which we're gonna go ahead and disconnect the clutch line. It's gonna make a mess. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Everybody can join in. Oh, come on, don't be like that. It's almost a little big. 24, of course. If I had a 24, it would be a 22. Okay, that should be good.